Understanding the meaning of your existence, why you are here. There is one question that every human being must answer, whether they realize it or not. Why am I here? Not your job, not your goals, not your plans for next year. I'm talking about your existence. Why do you exist? Because if you don't answer that question, you will spend your entire life misusing yourself. And most people already are. We have a world full of people who are busy, who are active, who are productive, and completely out of purpose. They are making money, but they don't know why they are here. They are building careers, but they don't understand their design. They are chasing success, but they have no idea what success is for. So they wake up, work, scroll, eat, sleep, repeat, and call that a life. No! That is not no life. That is existence without understanding. Let me say something that may offend you, but it will wake you up if you let it. Just because you are alive does not mean you are living on purpose. Breathing is automatic. Purpose is intentional. And if you don't live intentionally, you will drift into a life you never chose. Let me take it deeper. You were not created to just survive. You were not created to just pay bills. You were not created to just chase comfort. You were created for a reason. And if you don't discover that reason, you will spend your life fulfilling other people's agendas, working in places you don't belong, committing to things you were never designed for, becoming something you were never meant to be. That's why so many people feel empty, even when they are successful, because success without purpose is exhausting. You can have money and still feel meaningless. You can have recognition and still feel lost. You can have everything people admire and still feel like something is missing. That something is purpose. And here is the problem. Most people are not searching for purpose. They are searching for comfort. They want a life that feels good, not a life that is aligned. So they make decisions based on ease instead of design. They follow trends instead of truth. They chase opportunities instead of calling. And then they wake up years later successful and unfulfilled. Let me make this plain. If you don't know your purpose, you will abuse your potential, because purpose is what gives meaning to your abilities. Without purpose, your gifts become distractions. Your talents become tools for the wrong assignments. Your time becomes invested in things that don't matter. And the danger is this: you can become very good at the wrong thing. You can master something that has nothing to do with why you exist. And the world will reward you for it. They will promote you. They will celebrate you. They will validate you. And all the while, you are drifting further away from your purpose. That is deception, because not all success is success. Some success is distraction in disguise. So before we talk about purpose, we have to confront this truth. You cannot discover why you exist if you are addicted to distraction. Because purpose requires stillness, it requires reflection, it requires honesty, and most people are too busy to face themselves. Let me ask you something, and don't answer it quickly. If everything was stripped away, your job, your money, your titles, your followers, who would you be? And more importantly, why would you exist? Because until you can answer that, you don't know your purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, you are living by default, not by design. So in this message, we are going to break this down completely. What purpose really is, why most people never find it, and how to actually discover why you were created. Because once you understand your purpose, everything changes. The lie you were taught about purpose. There is a lie that most people have built their entire lives on. And the reason it's so dangerous is because it sounds right. It feels good. It's socially accepted. It's repeated everywhere. But it is completely wrong. The lie is this: your purpose is about you. Your happiness, your dreams, your goals, your fulfillment. No, that is not your purpose. That is self-centered ambition masquerading as purpose. And if you build your life on that idea, you will spend years chasing something that will never satisfy you. Let me confront this directly. You were not created just to be happy. Because if happiness is your purpose, then whatever makes you feel good becomes justified. So now, discipline feels optional. Commitment feels restrictive. Sacrifice feels unnecessary. And the moment something gets hard, you quit because it no longer makes you happy. That is not purpose. That is emotional slavery. You are being led by how you feel instead of why you exist. And feelings are unstable. They change daily. They shift under pressure. They disappear when things get uncomfortable. So if your life is built on feelings, your life will never be consistent. Let me go further. Another lie you were taught is this: follow your passion. Sounds good. It's inspirational. It's marketable. But it's incomplete. And for many people, it's destructive. Because passion is not always connected to purpose. Passion is emotional. Purpose is intentional. Passion comes and goes. Purpose remains. If you only follow what excites you, you will abandon anything that requires discipline. And most of your purpose will require discipline. So now you have people jumping from thing to thing, chasing what feels good in the moment, calling it purpose. That's not purpose. That's instability with a motivational quote. Let me make it even more controversial. Some of you are not searching for your purpose. You are avoiding responsibility. Because once you know your purpose, you are accountable to it. You can't live casually anymore. You can't waste time the same way. You can't keep making excuses. So instead, you stay in search mode. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still exploring. I'm still finding myself. No, you are delaying alignment because alignment requires discipline. Let's go deeper. Another lie you were taught. Purpose is something you create. No, you don't create purpose. You discover it because purpose existed before you did. You didn't bring yourself here. You didn't design your own existence. You didn't assign your own function. So how can you decide why you exist? That's like a phone deciding it wants to be a toaster. It can try, but it will never function properly because it was not designed for that. And that's what many people are doing, living outside of their design, then wondering why life feels frustrated. Because when you don't know your purpose, you misuse yourself. And misuse always leads to damage. That's why people burn out. That's why people feel empty. That's why people succeed and still feel lost. Because they are functioning outside of their original design. Let me hit this harder. You don't get to define your purpose. You get to align with it. And alignment requires surrender. And people don't like that word because surrender means it's not about you. It means your life has an assignment that is bigger than your comfort. It means your existence is connected to something greater than your personal desires. And that is where most people check out because they don't want purpose. They want control. They want to decide everything. They want to do whatever they feel. They want a life with no boundaries. But a life with no boundaries has no direction. And a life with no direction will eventually feel meaningless. So now you have people with freedom but no fulfillment, options but no clarity, movement but no meaning. That is the result of believing the wrong definition of purpose. Let me say this as clearly as possible. Purpose is not about what you want, it's about what you were created for. And until you understand that, you will keep chasing things that were never meant to satisfy you. So the real question is not, what do I want to do with my life? The real question is, why was I given life in the first place? Because when you answer that, everything else starts to align. Why most people never discover their purpose. This is important. Now here is the uncomfortable truth. It is not that purpose is hidden. It is not that it is impossible to find. It is not that only a special few discover it. Most people never discover their purpose because they are not willing to face the truth about themselves. Let that sit. Purpose is not lost. It is buried under distractions, under fear, under ego, under noise, and most people are addicted to all four. Let's break it down because this is where people get exposed. The first reason people never discover their purpose is distraction. We are living in the most distracted generation in human history. You wake up and you reach for your phone. You go to sleep scrolling someone else's life. Hours every single day consumed by content that has nothing to do with your calling. And then you say, I don't know my purpose. Of course you don't. You don't have the attention span to discover it because purpose requires focus. It requires stillness. It requires time alone. But silence makes people uncomfortable because in silence you hear yourself, and many people don't like what they hear. So they stay distracted. Endless scrolling, endless entertainment, endless noise. Anything to avoid sitting with your own thoughts. But hear me, you will never discover your purpose while you are constantly escaping yourself. Second reason, fear. Because purpose will demand something from you. It will demand growth. It will demand discipline. It will demand sacrifice. And people are afraid of who they will have to become. Let me make it plain. Some of you are not lost. You are scared because deep down you already know what you're supposed to be doing. But you also know it's going to cost you. It might cost you comfort. It might cost you relationships. It might cost you approval. So instead of stepping into purpose, you shrink back into what's familiar, and then you call it confusion. No, it is fear disguised as uncertainty. Third reason, and this one is dangerous, ego. Because purpose will not always match your image. It may not look impressive. It may not be glamorous. It may not get applause. And people don't want that. They want significance on their terms. So if purpose doesn't come with recognition, they reject it. Let me say something controversial. Some of you don't want purpose. You want attention. You want to be seen. You want to be praised. You want to feel important. But purpose is not about being seen. It's about being effective. And sometimes your greatest impact will happen in places where nobody is clapping. And if your identity is built on attention, you will abandon purpose for visibility. Fourth reason, and this one might be the biggest, lack of discipline. Because purpose is not just discovered, it is developed. You don't just find it and everything becomes clear overnight. You grow into it, you build into it, you commit to it. But that requires consistency. That requires structure. That requires doing the right thing over and over again. When it's boring, when it's hard, when it's inconvenient. And most people don't have the discipline for that. So they stay in the idea of purpose, but never step into the reality of it. They talk about it, they think about it, they post about it, but they don't build it. Let me go even deeper. There is another reason people never discover purpose, and it's the one nobody wants to admit. They are too comfortable. Comfort is dangerous because comfort kills urgency. It numbs conviction. It delays action. When life is good enough, you stop searching for what is right. So you settle. You settle for routines. You settle for environments. You settle for identities that have nothing to do with your purpose. And then years go by and nothing changes. Let me say something that might wake you up. You can waste your entire life being comfortable. No crisis, no collapse, no dramatic failure. Just slow, quiet irrelevance. That is the danger. Because not all failure is loud. Some failure is living an average life when you were created for something specific. Let me bring it together. The reason most people never discover their purpose is not because it's unavailable. It's because they are unwilling to become the kind of person who can receive it. Because purpose requires clarity. Clarity requires honesty. Honesty requires courage, and courage is rare. So the question is not, do you have a purpose? You do. The real question is, are you willing to remove everything that is prevent you from seeing it? Because until you do, you will keep searching for something that has been there all along. How purpose is discovered, not created. Now we have to dismantle one of the most dangerous assumptions ever taught to a generation. That purpose is something you invent. Because once you believe that, you stop searching for truth and start manufacturing identity. And that is how people end up lost while being confident. Let me say it clearly, you are not the origin of your existence, so you cannot be the author of its meaning. That alone should humble every human being. But instead, we live in a time where people are told, be anything you want, create your own reality, define your own truth. It sounds empowering, but it quietly removes accountability to design. Because if everything is self-defined, then nothing is objectively wrong and nothing is objectively right. And that is not freedom, that is confusion legalized. Let's go deeper. Everything that functions properly in life follows design before expression. A seed does not decide what it will become, it reveals what it already is. A fish does not discover its passion for water, it survives because it is aligned with it. But humans, we are the only creation that tries to negotiate with design. We say, I know I was made for discipline, but I prefer comfort. I know I was made for truth, but I prefer acceptance. I know I was made for purpose, but I prefer options. And we call that maturity. No, that is not maturity. That is misalignment with self-awareness. Now listen carefully. Purpose is not hidden because it is complicated. It is hidden because it is inconvenient. Because once you find it, you lose the right to live casually. That is why many people avoid clarity. Not because they are lost, but because they are afraid of responsibility. Because responsibility removes excuses, and excuses are what people use to delay alignment. Let that land. Now, how is purpose actually discovered? Not through emotional highs, not through motivational moments, not through identity experimentation. Those things create personality, not purpose. Purpose is discovered through three things most people avoid: stillness, truth, and confrontation. Stillness exposes what distraction was hiding. Truth exposes what pride was protecting. Confrontation exposes what fear was avoiding. And most people refuse all three, so they stay loud, so they never have to listen inward. They stay busy, so they never have to sit with themselves. They stay entertained, so they never have to think deeply. And then they say, I just don't know my purpose. No, you have engineered your own confusion. Let's go further. One of the clearest indicators of purpose is not excitement, it is resistance. What keeps coming back to you even when you try to ignore it? What thought refuses to leave your mind even when you distract yourself? That repetition is not random, it is direction trying to break through denial. But most people drown it out because direction requires change, and change threatens identity. So instead of obedience, they chose familiarity, and they call it peace. But it is not peace, it is avoidance dressed as stability. Now let me say something that will challenge modern thinking. You do not discover purpose by adding more to your life. You discover it by removing what does not belong. Because clarity is not found in accumulation, it is found in elimination. You eliminate distraction. You eliminate false identity. You eliminate borrowed opinions. And what remains is what was always there. That is purpose, not created, revealed. And if that offends modern self-definition, culture, good, because truth is not obligated to agree with trends. You don't discover purpose by becoming more of what you want. You discover it by uncovering what you were designed to be. The moment everything changes, your full awakening. There is a moment not everyone reaches, not because it is unavailable, but because it is resisted. It is the moment when illusion stops being sustainable, when distraction stops being satisfying, when success stops being enough, and suddenly you are forced to ask a question you have avoided your entire life. What am I actually doing with my existence? Not my career, not my image, not my routine, my existence. And that question changes the temperature of your entire life. Because once it enters your mind, comfort starts to feel suspicious, noise starts to feel empty, business starts to feel meaningless, and you realize something disturbing. You have been active but not aligned, productive but not purposeful, and that realization is not gentle. It fractures denial. Now here is what makes this moment so powerful. You don't lose your life in that moment. You lose your illusion of it. And people panic when illusion breaks, because illusion was comforting. It gave identity without accountability. It gave motion without meaning. It gave activity without direction. But truth removes all of that, and what remains is uncomfortable clarity. Now you see, not everything you built was meant for you. Not everything you pursued was assigned to you. Not everything you succeeded in was aligned with you. And that realization can feel like a loss, but it is actually correction. Now let me push this further. In this moment of awakening, you don't just rethink your life. You begin to grieve it. You grieve wasted time. You grieve misaligned effort. You grieve years spent proving the wrong thing. But that grief is not destruction. It is purification. Because you cannot step into purpose without first letting go of the counterfeit version of it. Now something else happens. You become intolerant of emptiness. Conversations that once entertained you now feel hollow. Goals that once motivated you now feel shallow. Environments that once felt normal now feel misaligned. And this is where change begins. Not in behavior first, but in disgust. You become uncomfortable staying the same, and that discomfort becomes your catalyst. Now listen closely. Purpose does not arrive when you are ready. It becomes visible when you are honest. And honesty always costs something. It costs image. It costs denial. It costs convenience. But it gives you something greater. Alignment with truth. And here's the hardest part. Once you see alignment, you cannot unsee misalignment. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer delay. You can no longer hide behind someday. Because now you know you are not confused. You are accountable. And that is where transformation begins. Not when you feel ready, but when you refuse to stay the same. So the real moment everything changes is not emotional. It is final. It is the internal decision. I will no longer live misaligned with what I know to be true. And once that decision is made, your life stops being something you manage and starts to become something you answer for. Thank you all. God bless you. Transforming people's lives. The Kingdom Sanctuary of Eden and Outreach Ministries. With our clothing bins all over, we're collecting clothes and shoes and giving it out to all in the communities, in the cities, and all over the world. Wherever there is a need, the Kingdom Sanctuary of Eden is there to fulfill it. Please continue all your donations, whether it be clothes, food, shoes, or monetary donations, so we can take care of God's people all over the world. The donation starts with you. Let's build the kingdom together.